In our law and justice lead, another shocking turn in the case of Sean Diddy Combs. Prosecutors, as you know, say that the music mogul committed some unspeakable acts. And now they're saying that he's engaging.
Let's start with some video footage that's resurfaced. Footage from a 2014 birthday party Sean Diddy Combs organized for Meek Mill. This video has resurfaced, and the property manager of the venue, the Parisian Palace in Las Vegas, is making some shocking claims. He says there were broken bottles of alcohol, used condoms, bloodstains on the bedding, hundreds of razors, lubricant on dresses, and even panties, bras, and 2 iPhones found in the bushes behind the bowling alley. It's a lot to take in, isn't it?
In witness tampering from behind bars. How do they know that? Well, through evidence that Diddy's attorneys say the feds should never have been able to obtain. They are accusing federal prosecutors of what they call outrageous misconduct. Personal notes that allegedly contain attorney-client defense strategies, were seized from Diddy's New York jail cell. Combs' legal team calls that search a violation of his constitutional rights, and they're demanding an evidentiary hearing.
Now, with Diddy allegedly filming everything and having video cameras at the party, do you think more footage could eventually surface? Footage of these notorious freakout parties where all the chaotic and grotesque things were happening? The fact that Diddy supposedly taped everything makes it seem likely there's more footage, doesn't it?
Prosecutors defend the seizure. They say the notes were obtained during a nationwide, pre-planned sweep of multiple prison facilities. They claim the notes were reviewed by a filter team, someone not involved in the case, to remove privileged materials before they were turned over to prosecutors. Now, prosecutors are arguing the notes that they got contain evidence that Diddy may have tried to influence witnesses, alleging that he paid a witness after making a public statement. Diddy's team strongly denies these allegations. This development comes as Diddy, who has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking, racketeering, and related charges, is set to appear in court Friday. This would be his third attempt to be released on bond. The case is now raising serious questions about due process and pretrial detainee rights.
However, I'm curious. The party was 10 years ago. So why is this property manager speaking out now? Is this an attention grab, or could there be more to it? We've heard about Diddy's wild parties, but he's facing some serious charges now, sex trafficking among others. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. The more stories like this that emerge, the more it could play into his defense, especially if a jury has already heard all these details. And let's talk about the property manager's credibility. He claims to have found cocaine all over the house, but thought it was icing sugar. I mean, who mistakes that? Then, he supposedly ate some of it and claims to have gotten half a gram together. His story doesn't hold much water.
Joey Jackson, criminal defense attorney and CNN legal analyst. Joey, just to remind everybody, allegations is not a conviction, and Diddy is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But the big question here is it legal for the prosecutors to seize personal notes from a pre-trial detainee, even if a filter team has gone through them and taken out anything privileged? And also explain what a filter team is first, if you could.
But let's shift gears. I can't help but wonder about the celebrities connected to these stories, especially as names tied to Jeffrey Epstein's infamous list continue to surface. Elon Musk, for example, recently discussed this with Tucker Carlson. He pointed out that no one on Epstein's list has been prosecuted, which is beyond concerning. It's hard to ignore the fact that some of the world's most powerful people seem to be getting away with this. But what will happen when the truth finally comes out? We're already hearing whispers about how this could be exposed, especially with a potential second term for Trump. People are worried, billionaires especially. Could this lead to more revelations? If so, it could shake up everything we know about power and corruption.
Yeah, so Jake, this discussion, no matter whether you love Diddy, don't like him, think he's guilty, think he's not guilty, that's not the issue. The issue is the propriety of the conduct of the government as alleged. Everyone is entitled to a fair trial. Now, the first question comes, well, should the government have been searching his cell? Do they have these searches in jails? Is that appropriate? I think the general answer is yes. They're going to have searches of various detainee cells for safety reasons and other reasons. So as a result of that, expect and anticipate that your cell will be searched. The next question becomes, well, if there's information with respect to that search.
Speaking of celebrities, comedian Dave Chappelle recently had to defend his friend, John Stamos, who is being bombarded with hateful comments on Instagram. Why? Because Stamos wore a bold cap in solidarity with Chappelle, who's battling cancer. Some critics were upset that Stamos didn't shave his head to match Chappelle's look. Honestly, I find it unbelievable that people would criticize him for this. If the person who's actually suffering isn't offended, why should anyone else be? It's ridiculous. Chappelle's facing a life-threatening battle, and this is what people are focusing on? It's cruel and insensitive.
That deals with your case, that is attorney work product, right? Not attorney work product, but certainly attorney client. When you go, when you're visiting a client in a jail, you have discussions about your case, about witnesses, about strategy, about issues. You may take notes or do anything you like, either with your attorneys or when you go back. Now, if the government has gotten that specific information, the answer becomes, well, why and how? That leads me to the question about a filter team. If you get information, and it could be attorney-client privilege, right? You should have the right to speak to your attorney about everything and anything, but it should be filtered. There are a government team. In fact, the Department of Justice created a team in 2020 to do just this, filter information, so that that team is not part of the case, not part of the prosecution. You look for attorney-client privilege information, you parse it out, then you give it to prosecutors. What was the process followed?
But here's something I can relate to. Hugh Grant recently opened up about his experience being an older father. He started having kids at 52, and now at 64 he's got 5 children. And let's just say, he has some regrets about starting so late. But what's really funny and relatable is his rant about the little things that drive him crazy. People walking slowly, people with backpacks, and especially the whole water bottle issue. He hates how kids have to carry water bottles everywhere, and honestly, I get it. Why can't we just use a drinking fountain? The size of these water bottles today is just ridiculous.
What was the protocol followed? Was it followed properly or appropriately? We don't know. That's why a hearing is necessary. That should never get into the hands of prosecutors. It's unfair, it's inappropriate, shouldn't happen, and that raises serious questions. That's what a filter team did. Did they abdicate their responsibility? We'll see at a hearing.
This all coming on the heels, of course, of a recent court filing where prosecutors were citing jail phone records. They claimed that Diddy used the phone accounts of at least 8 inmates to evade monitoring and to make calls that they allege are also witness tampering. How does his defense team respond to that as they're trying to get Diddy released on bond?
Listen, that's a question of fact, and either the government has the goods on that and he was attempting to do it or not. That's an allegation. That's something else that could be addressed at a hearing or not addressed. But I think the main and core question is, if you have materials that's prepared with your defense lawyers, how do prosecutors get that? Should prosecutors have gotten that? Should the defense team have been given notice to object to that prior to it being given to prosecutors? And so again, no matter what you believe in as guilt, we have to have a process where people believe, where the people believe in their government and their government's not.
But aside from his pet peeves, I have to say I really respect Hugh Grant for keeping his kids out of the public eye. It's refreshing to see a celebrity who values his family's privacy. He's clearly trying to protect them from the public's prying eyes, which I think is admirable. And that's all the time we have for today. Always fascinating to dive into these stories and discuss the latest developments. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.